recording. So hello, everyone. Once again, I'm the library director for the Illinois Prairie District Public Library, Joel Shoemaker, and we are here with another author interview, which we've been doing monthly during the coronavirus situation, the pandemic, as it were. And today we have a very special guest from Portland. Is that right?
Yes.
Jen Reese in Portland. So thank you, Jen, for joining us. You're joining us in Central Illinois. I don't know if I told you that. So the magic of the internet, no one needs to know. And this is the book that we're here today to discuss, A Game of Fox and Squirrels, which the library has several copies of now, and just came out in April. So I'll give a brief description in a minute, but how's the reception been for you, Jen, with this new book? Since it came out in kind of a weird time, has it been good? Have you been getting good feedback?
It's been a little bit of a mix. You know, I haven't been able to go in person and meet with everybody to see how it's being received, but you know, online, everyone's pretty amazing. So especially the community of librarians, teachers, kid readers, you know, that's been really, really gratifying and great. And
like amazing reviews.
I'm very fortunate, yes.
I have so many questions about the book. I read it with zero expectations because I hadn't heard about it. I heard about it from a friend of mine in publishing, but they, you know, assured me that it was amazing. So I'm going to try to give my best brief synopsis, but I don't want to give anything away. So I just want to make it clear to our readers that there may be a little bit missing from our plot summary. But basically, there is an incident within a family that sends two sisters, away to live with another family member that they've never met. And they arrive, and actually they're arriving in Oregon, right? They're arriving in Oregon from California, correct? And they're not super excited about their relocation. And the cause of the relocation is a bit shrouded in mystery for the first part of the book. And then the sister finds this game, and then the characters in the game sort of come to life, and I hope that doesn't give too much away. And then I'll just leave it at that. And so then they have myriad adventures with the characters from the game, and that's kind of where we'll just leave it. And then adventures ensue. Was that an adequate description or like a decent?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
That's great. I think I tend to give too much away, so I think you did fabulous.
I don't want to give anything away because when I first found out what the incident was, which is dropped so casually in one point, I just was like a little bit shattered. So, and I will say, like, we shouldn't call it a happy book necessarily, should we?
I call it a hopeful book.
A hopeful book.
Yeah. So there's some darkness in life sometimes, but there's light at the end.
Yeah. And would you say it's like very much a middle grade reader? Like
yes.
Fifth, eighth, fifth, ninth, maybe even fourth grade, I guess.
Yeah. It depends. I mean, the younger you go, I would have someone talking with, you know, going over and discussing it more with the readers, but.
And so, you know, we'll dive back into this book. But before we do, since I don't know much about your writing, can you tell us about your other book? This is your second book, right?
Yes, it's my second middle grade series. The first was a trilogy. So.
Okay. So you have an entire trilogy complete.
Yes. And that's a science fiction, adventure, martial arts, like bioengineered mermaids. It's quite different in terms of like what it's about. But that's just sort of like everything fun about like action, adventure, and future types of things. So yeah.
Completely different. Completely different. So then, but I think I read maybe in the acknowledgments of this book that this is the book that you'd always wanted to write, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, I grew up sharing some commonalities with the main character of this book. And I've always wanted to write about what that sort of like, when I'm not trying to give too much away, but when you grow up in a house where you're not feeling safe. So I wanted to write a story about that feeling, or for other kids who might be in it, because that's sort of a book I needed to find when I was that age, and I did not. But it's a hard book to write, and it's taken me years to find a good way to approach it, because it can be too heavy-handed, it can be dark at times. So trying to find a way into that story has taken me my whole career so far, sort of. I try every few years and I fail. And so this time I feel like I got closest.
And so, did I also read correctly that it kind of started with the game?
Yes, it did. Yeah. When I'm setting out to write a new book, I usually ask myself, what am I most excited about in my life right now that's not writing? So what other things am I obsessing about? And I love board games, card games, any sort of game at all. And I had just been taking a class on designing your own games, which is another thing I just really love doing. I love the whole idea of it. And I thought, I'll design a game and use it in the book, in the next book I write, whatever that is. And then
So
once I started, go ahead.
You had an intention of writing a book from the game.
Yes. I thought I would in some way integrate them. Of course, I thought at the time it was going to be just like this action adventure thing, very similar to my first series. But when I started getting into it, card games are really tied to my childhood. I played a lot of them growing up, and they have some good memories and some bad memories tied with all of that. And so as I started to work on the game, I started to see the connection between sort of talking about childhood issues of my own and then, into the game and combining them with the game. So.
Yeah, and I actually found instructions for the game online, and it's super cool. It's a bit, would you call it a bit gin rummy-ish?
Yes, it's exactly based off of gin rummy. I played a game called Seven Different Hands when I was growing up.
Ooh, I don't know that one.
It's basically like a gin thing. So yeah,
Okay.
you're trying to get different sets and runs each hand as you go. And so that was in my mind the whole time I was writing this, that I wanted it to be sort of based off of that my own experiences playing that game growing
Yeah,
up.
that's great. That's great. Well, it's enormously creative. And I wanted to know too, just because I'm curious, where some of the names came from. I mean, some of it's obvious, like the names of the squirrels are named after trees. I'm not very botanical, but I'm pretty sure that they're trees. But where did the name Ashander come from? Is that how you say it?
Ashander. Yeah, I just made it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted something that sounded very cool.
Okay.
And I don't know. What I do normally is I have a page and I write down like sometimes hundreds of names on it, and just sort of go back through and cross them out and circle ones I like and then come back to them and then say them out loud. I didn't used to say them out loud until I had audiobooks made of my stuff. And then I was yeah, I got to pay closer attention to how people actually speak these things, because audiobooks are really important.
That makes so much sense, and I would have never thought of that. So that's really cool. Well, then and for the record, I don't think I mentioned that's the name of the fox in the book, and I just love the name of the fox. So I had to know. So this is then, I guess, your fourth book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it says that you write speculative fiction.
Yes.
So which you can call, I guess you could call a lot of things speculative fiction if you wanted, because this sounds a lot different from your Above World trilogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, will you just stick with that genre? Is that kind of your thing? Is that what you want to keep writing?
Yes. Like science fiction and fantasy, that's what I grew up reading. And that's what really helped me sort of get through my childhood, just that idea of escaping and such. And as a writer, I find that one of the best ways to talk about current issues is with the framework of a fantasy or a science fiction.
Oh, sure.
Sort of taking one step away from our reality to look on it. Just sort of like how sometimes if you go on a long vacation, you can see your life more clearly. Science fiction and fantasy is a little like that. You step away from the specifics of your reality, and then you can actually sometimes see it more clearly when you do that.
Huh. That's really cool. That's really cool. Did you always want to be an author, or was there something else that you thought you would do, or what did you think?
I did not always want to be an author. I wanted to be, when I was growing up, I wanted to be an artist. Desperately wanted to be an artist. And then I got to high school and I had some friends who were really good at art already. And then I thought, well, I don't need to do this anymore because they're already better than me, which is the worst thing. It's the worst response. And I feel tremendous regret over that. So right now I'm actually getting back into art because now I understand that it's okay that other people are better than me at it, and
Mm-hmm.
sort of getting more of that beginner's mindset where you're like, it's okay. It's okay to not be great at things. If you love them, keep working at them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any idea what you will write next? Do you have that in mind already? Are you working on something during quarantine or?
I am. I'm working on a book that's called Every Bird a Prince, which I
Okay,
don't know if
love
that's
that.
going to be the title or not.
Sure.
I haven't talked about it with my editor yet, but I'm almost done. I'm hoping to be done by the end of this month for the first draft. And
Wow.
it also takes place in Oregon, and it has a magical bird kingdom in the forest. So it's a
That's
little bit
super
about,
fun.
yeah, it's a little bit about sort of exploring your identity, how we
Mhm.
use fantasy sometimes to sort of put on different versions of ourselves to see what feels the most authentic, and then
Yeah.
how we sort of bring back from the fantasy to our real lives, like what we've learned.
So
That
there
sort of
are some serious themes in this book for sure. How do you feel about, or what are you hearing from young readers, or as to their response? Do you feel like this is something that should be read with families? I think you mentioned that for like younger readers, or I don't know, like how are people responding to it? Because for me, it took a while after I was done. I had to, sit with it for a minute. It's not necessarily a lighthearted, super fun time. Um,
Right,
so,
right.
so what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that for
I
people here that might
do.
read it?
I do. I will say that the people who have the hardest time, who necessarily have to sit with it for a little, are usually the adults, right?
Hmm.
Because adults understand the complexity of the situation that the girls are going through in the book. They understand what it's like to have, um, let's just say, domestic violence incidents in the past and things like that. So adults are definitely struggling with it a little bit more. Kid readers are resilient and they just roll with it. So they do not, I have not had any kid say that they actually had any trouble with it. And kids are
Oh,
used to
good.
reading stories where kids are in jeopardy or kids are fighting monsters or vampires or whatever. So
Yeah.
they're not really affected in the same way that adults who understand or maybe have their own personal feelings of what they went through as children to deal with also. So it's
That's
kind of
super cool.
interesting.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is interesting. And just so families know that might want to know, the book has a great website actually that accompanies it, with the card game, which is super cool, and also great discussion questions that can help um, groups reading it together or families reading it together or however that might work. So great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about your book. I'm super excited about it, and we just put it on our shelves. So for anyone that might be watching that is an IPDPL patron, we are one of few libraries in the area that have it so far, because I think it's so new and it was hard to
Hmm.
get books during the shutdown, but we're starting to get shipments of new books in, and you'll see new books pop up online every, I think, Wednesday we show them online. So, but just search for it. It should be there. This is one copy of it that I kept to myself, and I will now have cataloged now that I'm done with it. But thank you so much, Jen. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you so much. It's been great.
yeah, super fun to talk to you. And we'll get the book in people's hands in Central Illinois, and go from there. I think it'll be a big hit around here. So
Great.
thank you
Thank you
so
so
much
much.
for talking to us. I'm gonna